Hello. Yes, welcome to the Ladies Parsha Share. So it's just mentioned that the beginning of the redemption now in this week's Parsha starts in earnest. The backdrop had already been established in the previous Parsha when Hashem told Moshe to go to the Jewish people, go to Pharaoh, and of course, let my people go. Interesting, isn't it, that in the very week of let my people go, the current pharaohs, the current people who consider themselves pharaohs, are still trying to hang on to the people, and so.
Like the Parsha.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's quite ironic. So yes, we certainly are in need of a Moshe to come along and tell Pharaoh, just let him go. No, there's no negotiating here. No negotiating. You want to get out alive, you let them go. You don't want to, you know what I'm saying? That's really what Moshe didn't negotiate. Moshe did not negotiate. He didn't, it was, Pharaoh kept asking for a ceasefire, and not the other way around. Is Mr. Suffering on her way? Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah. So, in fact, at the end of last week's Parsha, Moshe comes with a bit of we had a complaint to Hashem and said, "What's going on here?" Remember last week was when Pharaoh said, "I'm not going to give you any more straw. Yes, you're gonna have to go and get your own straw, okay, and make your own bricks, and." That's when the Jews said, "Oh, that's the last straw." Yeah, and Pharaoh said, "Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you." So yes, so Moshe got quite frustrated. Really, he said, "Well, here you sent me to save the Jews. It's not happening. It's not happening." So he got rather upset. So then Hashem complains back a bit, not complains, but gives Moshe a bit of a rebuke, in the sense of, like the Ovos, the forefathers were the ones who had such emunah and bitochen in Hashem, and they never questioned me. They never questioned what I did. And you, Moshe, you're the one who questions. And interesting, isn't it? Well, Moshe himself is really supposed to be the head honcho. It's actually, we call him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher. How is it possible he actually, was he failing here? Was he failing in the fact that he questioned? Things were so difficult and tough that up to the point where Hashem had to tell him, hey, listen here, you. Listen here, mate. You have to have more faith and more bitachon. Well, not really. Moshe's thing, you see, the Avos were they served Hashem in a more emotional way. Emotional. You had Avram was the idea of chesed. Hello, good morning. Avram was the idea of chesed, of kindness. Yes, we know he was kind and charitable to everybody. Yitzhak was the idea of Gevurah. He was severity, din, power. Yes, Yaakov was a bit of a combination of that. So these were all different ways of serving Hashem in an emotional way. But Moshe Rabbeinu was different. Moshe was the idea of understanding, chokhmah of Torah, wisdom. He had to really try to get his head around things. He had to understand things. And therefore he's coming to Hashem and saying, why, what, how is this possible?
So it's not like a lack of Kabbalah soul. It's just that.
No, in a sense, he was doing what he felt was his job, in a way, that his job is to understand it. One of the reasons, if he understands it properly, then also he can explain it to others, you see. If I, look, it's interesting. If I tell you that there's a thing where that we believe in the idea of Mashiach, right? And Mashiach is a guy who's going to come and he's going to have so much power, and he's going to have so much influence in the world, and he's going to change the world for the better, and he's going to just, he's just going to he's going to end all wars, and he's going to end this, and he's going to end that, right? And you look at me and you say, right, yes, a very nice idea, Rabbi. We've been saying this ani mamin for, thousands of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years. So we say, because we believe in it. Okay, because it's a principle of faith. It's a principle of faith. But then if I say to you, do you know, you ever heard of a chap? There's a certain chap in America now who's just been elected to the president of the most powerful country on earth. And this guy has so much power and so much influence that everybody is lining up in front of him. Everybody's trying to bow down to him. And he's influencing everything all over the world, so that people should stop fighting. People should be more together, be more united, be more friendly, and he's, ushering in a whole different era. And he has so much power and so much influence over everybody in the world. So then you say, oh yeah, you actually see it with your own eyes. You can see it. It's not, you don't need so much to take it on emunah anymore, because you can actually see it if I can explain it to you what's going on. So, and that when they see, seeing is believing. Although it's not strictly true, because believing is dafka when you don't see it. When you don't see it, then you have to have emunah. Yeah. If you see it, you're not believing it, you know it. Yes? People who see Hashem in their daily lives, yes, they see how much Hashem helps and works. I mean, the fact that we all wake up in the morning and we see things Hashem, you see things going on. It's not belief. It's not belief. I know Hashem is running things. I know Hashem is helping me. I know Hashem is doing this. I know Hashem. So seeing is knowing. You believe is when you're not sure, you don't know, you've never experienced, you've never seen it, right? So here, the redemption had not come for the Jewish people. So Moshe Rabbeinu was just trying to understand what's going on here. And because he needs to understand. What was the first thing he said at the burning bush? Very basic thing. The first thing that he's quoted in his in his discussion with Hashem, exactly. What does he say? Look what is so fascinating here. Just putting up this point. He was a shepherd, right? It says on page 354, right? If you want to go back to 355, verse 3. Well, verse 2 says, Vayaja, he saw this malach, this angel, in the fire, right, in the burning bush. He saw and he looked for it's not burning. In other words, it's on fire, but it's not burning. There's a difference, you know what I'm saying? It's on fire, right? So what did Moshe say? Vayoma Moshe, one of the very first quotes of Moshe himself. I've got to see this. This is massive. Hamara gadol. Madua lo yivahasneh. Why is this bush not burning? The first thing he's doing is he wants to know why. He had an inquiring mind. Moshe had to understand things. That's why the Torah, which is the wisdom of Hashem, comes through Moshe, because Moshe was the most inquiring kind of a person. And he's saying, wow, I've got to look at this. I've got to kind of discover, how is it possible that a bush can be on fire, but not burn? Right? I've got to fit Madua, you see? He wants to know why. So you see, Moshe really wants to know why and how. Yeah? Now the others, they see a burning bush. Oh, okay, we've got a burning bush. We don't have to say, why is the bush burning? I don't care why. It doesn't really matter. Hashem is there. Hashem is talking to me. It's a way of talking. Hashem talking to me. Moshe here has to find out why. So then you have to ask the other question. You have to say, well, if Moshe was just trying to understand, and his whole idea is wanting to understand, to get right, that's who he is. That's his personality. And he wants to try to explain it to the people as well. So then why is Hashem telling him off? Why is Hashem... Hashem is giving a bit of a rebuke here. So the answer is that Hashem is telling him, look, don't think that serving Hashem is just about emotions or just about intellect. It's both. It's a combination.
Get out of your head.
Exactly. It's not always about understanding things. He says, yes, you want to understand. You understand. I get it. That's who you are. You got a great brain. You got an inquiring mentality. I get that. But, at the same time, you have to be a bit like the others. You have to be like Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Right? They didn't question. Why? Because for them, they didn't need to question because they weren't into understanding why, the reason why. They didn't need that because they were just, their relationship with Hashem was so powerful and passionate. It was like, whatever. How often do spouses and spouses? How often do spouses do things that the other spouse does not really understand?
All the time.
All the time. All the time. You know the famous story? You know the famous story about the guy in Australia? He found like a bottle, like a genie bottle, one of these genie things, and he rubbed it, and out comes a genie. He says, "Why?" He says, "I've got one wish. You have one wish. One wish you have." He said, "One wish? I get to." He says, "I wish I could understand women." So this genie says, "What? What? Are you crazy? Are you joking? Forget it. Ask another one. You get one more wish." He says, Just a second. Oh, I've told it slightly wrong. I'm so sorry. Go back a bit. Okay. He said, "I would love there to be a bridge from Melbourne to LA. A bridge. You could drive to LA. Would be great. Just get my car and drive to LA instead of flying 16 hours. It would be a long drive, obviously, but I would just love to." So this genie says, "Are you crackers?" He says, "Do you know how much steel, concrete to build a bridge? You've no idea. It doesn't exist, the steel and concrete in the whole world. I can only give you something, that you, right?" He says, have another wish." He says, all right. He says, "I'd like to understand the mind of women." So the genie says, "Okay, about that first wish, you want to..." Oh, that's the way I took it. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So it's not always about understanding. You just go with it. You roll with it. Yeah. So Hashem was telling Moshe, your service now is not always just about understanding. You need to just go with the flow a bit. Yes. You have to be like the others a bit. You have to be like the forefathers. They served Hashem in the sermon. That way they had emunah. They didn't. Yes, it's good that you want to understand. It's very good. Na'aseh v'nishma, as we said in Judaism, we will listen and we will do and we will listen. Yeah. So understanding is very important. God does want us to use our brain, but not at the expense of our commitment. Yeah. So this is what Hashem was telling Moshe. Come on, let's move on now. You're not going to understand everything. You don't understand the whole process, but things are going to now kick off anyway. They're going to kick off, and it's going to be glorious.
It's interesting. Hashem knows his personality, and he chose him.
Yes, because yes, but he's also teaching Moshe. Yeah. That's a good point. That even great tzaddikim are learning, and they're learning. And this is his first lesson. Well, actually, the first lesson was the burning bush itself, because the burning bush because Moshe said, I don't want. It kept refusing. Until Hashem said, "Look, this is not a debate. It's not an option. I'm not giving you an opportunity. I'm telling you, mate, off you go. Get on with it." Right? So Moshe, again, he used a lot of arguments, like arguments, I'm not a very good speaker. They're not going to listen to me. My brother's older than me. It was all kinds of great arguments. Hashem, but Hashem, sometimes intellect could get in the way. can get in the way. And that's what Hashem was trying to tell him. It's good that you have an intellect. It's good that you have got a great brain and a great mind and you want to inquire. Fantastic, wonderful. But don't let that get in the way of your commitment to me and your belief in me. Don't let that get in the way, because it's like you're shooting yourself a bit in the foot. Yes? At some point you have to come and hold your hands up and say, yeah, I don't get it. I just don't get it, and move on. And move on. Right? That's really our relationship with Hashem quite often, isn't it?
Something used to say, you can ask questions, don't question.
You can ask questions, but don't question. Very good. Very good for it. You can ask questions.
Don't question.
Yeah. Yes. Because sometimes you see, I always say this, sometimes you have this, what do you have in Parliament? We have a thing called question time. Yes? Prime Minister's question time. Now, what is Prime Minister's question time? Is the leader of Her Majesty's opposition
Like
for half an hour?
Like
For half an hour. Is a half an hour a week? Half an hour, I think, a week. Half an hour a week. Gets up there and asks questions. Now, he's not asking questions. He's taking his half hour to give a whole. He wants to give a little clap. He get a little push to the government, and you do it in the way of a question. Do you understand? But you see, sometimes 1,000 answers will not answer one question because you're not interested in the answer. And sometimes one answer can answer exactly, making a point, and you're making a point. You just answer your question. In Yiddish, we call it a stech. A stech, and you stick your nail. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? So 100% you can't question. And this is what Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. Look, there's a whole Seder here. There's a whole, don't worry. Yes, it looks like it's gotten worse, etc., blah, blah. But don't you worry about a thing. Anyway, yes. Okay. Now, let us move on a little bit. What happens over here is after this the Russia that Hashem says that Hashem, you think Moshe, nothing's happening here. This is it. This is the redemption. This is the first process of the redemption. Yes, things have gotten a little bit worse for the Jewish people, but the process has begun. So Hashem, they goes through the whole yichus over here, and it just goes through a certain yichus. Now, there is an interesting situation here. Where if you look on verse 374, 375, we find a very interesting. Yes, Moshe's lineage goes through the whole lineage of Moshe, and it comes to the point where it says, Amram es Yocheved, that Amram took. Amram, of course, was Moshe's father, and Yocheved was his mother. And it says, but there it makes a point. The Torah says that he took his auntie for a wife. He married his auntie. Now, some of you might say, well, is that allowed? That's not really allowed. It's true, it's actually not allowed. One's not allowed to marry an aunt in Judaism. One can marry a niece. A person can marry a niece, but a nephew cannot marry, you're not supposed to. Right? So question, how is he able to marry? And why does the Torah say this? Why does the Torah say this? I mean, if the Torah had not put in the word his aunt, I mean, we wouldn't be missing anything, would we? What would we be missing? So why does the Torah need to say he married his aunt? It's a fascinating thing. According to the Kabbalists, certain relationships that were prohibited by the Torah, okay, the Kabbalist says that these relationships that are normally prohibited can create tremendous, great spiritual things. It can achieve great spiritual light. However, that light is so great that most people can't handle it. And just like you can't look at the sun directly, why can't you look at the sun directly? Sun's nice, isn't it? You could get blind, right? You get blind. Why? Too much light. It's too much. Your eyes can't handle it. So you need to have some smoke from the glasses, right? So, but great righteous people, great tzaddikim, yes, tzaddikim, righteous people, they are able to handle it. It says in the Talmud speaks about there were 4 great sages who looked into all aspects of the Torah, including the deepest Kabbalistic aspects of the Torah. 3 out of the 4, something negative happened to them. 1 passed away, 1 went off the way, okay, and 1 went meshuggah. Yes, there was 1 who went in. It says nichnas b'shalom and yotza b'shalom, and he came out in shalom. Who was that? Anybody remember? The great Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva. It says that he was one of these 4. There was Ben Zomer, Ben Azai. It was Ben Zomer and Ben Azai. Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya. He's the one who went off the way. And Rabbi Akiva. Okay. So certain great tzaddikim can handle exceptionally bright light. Yes? Somehow or other their eyes can handle it. Their mind can handle it. The spirituality can handle it. So great tzaddikim can handle certain revelations that normally would be prohibited to the Jewish people, which after the Torah, you have to make a blanket prohibition because of what we call health and safety. You know what I mean? For the rest of the people who it would not work, it would be dangerous perhaps. But here we see that Moshe Rabbeinu, actually, he came from such an amazing union of an amazing relationship. And that was why, in a sense, that's why the Torah, the Rebbe explains why the Torah mentions that it was his aunt, because it was something that was actually something very, very special, very holy, that would not be normal, would not necessarily be appropriate for anybody else. But that's why the Torah mentions it. Okay, so now, and then we go on to the rest of the yichus, and then we start going on to the fact that he came to Paro, and what was the first thing he did in front of Pharaoh? What was the first test, if you like, that he showed Pharaoh? Anybody remember?
Oh.
What was the first thing? Sorry?
Snake.
The snake. Very good. Snake.
I was too late.
You were too late.
Yeah.
You're not too late. But listen, if Mashiach is also a bit too late. So you're in good company.
Thank you.
Yes, we'd like them to come right before the end of the year. So the snake, the trick with the snake, yes? So what was the trick? Where is it? Let's get it here. On page page 380, I believe. Page 380, 381. So it says that, verse 10. It says that they came before Moshe Aaron and they threw down Vayasha Aaron threw down his staff and it became a serpent. Yes, became a snake. And then the next verse, of course, that the Pharaoh calls his chevra, his magicians, they do the same thing. And they do their sticks become snakes. And then what happens? That the snake of Aaron returns into being a stick and then swallows up all the other snakes. We don't know how many there were, but it seems more than one. Okay. Now, where do we first read about this, by the way? Anybody remember about the trick? The trick with the snake. It was not a trick. It was a sign. It was a miracle. Huh? When? When was the first time? Anybody remember? The first time it happened was in the burning bush. when Moshe said, "Oh, we're not going to believe in me. I can't go. They won't believe me." So Hashem said, "What's that in your hand? You're holding a stick. Okay, throw the stick down." The stick turns into it's turned into a snake. So Rashi says, why did it turn into a snake? Because Moshe Rabbeinu has spoken Lashon Hara. And the snake represents the idea, I guess, evil, Lashon Hara. So he says, so you do this to the Jewish people in front of them, it'll become a snake. And then he grabbed it, and it became a stick again. But here's an interesting thing. Here, we don't find that Aaron had to do anything in order to make it back to a stick. It just became a stick again. Why? In the case of the burning bush, if you want the whatchamacallit, the actual verse, I can show you the verse. What did we have before? 3, 5. I'll just show you. Here, on verse 5, page 360. And verse 4, if you look at verse 4, Hashem said to Moshe, Shlach yodcho, send out your hand and grab the tail of this snake. And he did it. And he took hold of it and it became a stick again. Can you see that? You got that? On page 361, verse 4. But here, if you go back to our page, it just nothing happened. In other words, there was no action to specifically turn the snake back into a stick. Why? This question the Rebbe asks, why didn't it need a specific thing? It just turned back into a stick and swallowed them. I mean, that's more miraculous, isn't it?
What do you mean thing?
Huh? It didn't no pa'ula, like no action.
Right.
In the burning bush, Hashem said to him, grasp the tail and turn back into a stick. But here, there was nothing was needed to be done for it to turn back into a stick. Why? How can it just turn back into a stick, like automatically almost? A bit weird. Do you understand the question? Sometimes you can look so closely at what's going on, you see differences. What's the difference here? Why? An inquiring mind, that's what the Rabbi might ask. The truth is, there's two different kinds of miracles. Let's look at miracles for a minute. We've got a few miracles coming up over the next couple of weeks. Miracles, there are different kinds of miracles. There's one miracle where it's like completely, what's happened is, you've completely changed the nature of something. Well, if you in the old days, you had these alchemists. Yeah, what were alchemists? What were they always trying to do? Turn things into gold. Always trying to turn regular metal into gold. And as far as I know, nobody ever did it. Pardon?
Yeah.
Well, they tried,
Yeah.
but nobody succeeded.
Gold.
Gold. If you could turn regular metal into gold, what would you be? A billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what they were trying to do. Yeah, well, these guys were trying to do. They figured that there's such a thing called chemistry, alchemy.
It's like
but
diamond and graphite.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
A what?
Diamond and graphite.
Oh, yes, interesting. Yes. But there it's actually the same. It's the same stuff, just in a different. But you see, they didn't realize that you can't change one element into another. Do you understand? Carbon is graphite or coal or diamonds, or trees. You know what I'm saying? It's all the same sort of stuff. It's made out of carbon. But gold is a different material to brass or copper or metal or iron. Yeah. But they thought in those days, you just do a bit of a hocus pocus and we'll become gold, and obviously your uncle will be the biggest millionaires. That was what we do for hundreds of years throughout history. Right? Now, imagine, had they really turned it up to gold? Yes, had they? Which they didn't. But if it became gold, then they'd have to change it back. In other words, if you wanted to change, you'd have to do something else to change it back, because you've really changed it. And sometimes you can change something temporarily. So you haven't really changed it. You just temporarily, like you got this invisible ink. You remember invisible ink? So as kids, used to write it down. Well, invisible ink, it wasn't completely invisible, was it? It was only temporary, wasn't it? It was only invisible for a while. And afterwards, it showed up, right? So sometimes you can change something, but it's only temporary. And it will eventually go back to its normal situation. Like snow. Well, why does it snow? Because it's too cold. I mean, it's cold, right? It's below freezing. So the rain becomes snow, right? But it won't always stay as snow. Why won't it always stay as snow? Because when it gets warm, it's going to melt. Yes? So do you understand? So sometimes you can change something temporarily, but you're not changing the real essence of the thing, and it will return to its state. So here's a very interesting idea the Rebbe is explaining over here. It's two different kinds of miracles. The miracle of Moshe with the burning bush, with the stick and the snake, that was there because it really, really changed into a snake. That stick changed into a snake. It was a real snake. And it was because there was a real message here. There was a real proper message that Moshe had spoken Lashon Hara. It was to teach him a proper message, right? That message that don't speak bad about the Jewish people. They will believe you. And it has been a real change. Well, if it was a real change, then you're going to have to do something to put it back to what it was.
So that's an open miracle.
So that's an open miracle, a much bigger miracle in a way, because it really changed to a snake. So therefore he had to do something, grab it by the tail, then it would really turn back into the stick. But here, in our Parsha, in our case, the fact that it turned into a snake, there wasn't a great symbolic message here. It was just showing that Hashem is powerful. Hashem is powerful. And he can do whatever he wants to do. But he didn't need to change the very nature of the stick into a snake. It was just a temporary kind of a miracle. And after a while, however it was, after a few minutes, it changed back into a stick. So it didn't need any extra effort, extra thing to do, some object, some activity. It just went back. Do you understand? That is the difference between it. Might seem a little bit subtle and a bit like what difference does it make? But yeah. But I want to also just share with you now another beautiful concept over here about what the snake, what this idea of the snake and symbolically you can sort of sometimes, we always speak about being warm with people. You want to bring people close to Judaism, Makarev them. You use, what do you use? You use warmth. You use love, affection, kindness, pleasantness, all the good fuzzy stuff. Yes? Does that work all the time? Not always. Sometimes you may get a bit of a nudnik, shall we say? Somebody who doesn't sort of respond to that. He's a bit of a stick in the mud and he wants to start up and he wants to, And sometimes it may be necessary to, sometimes you can't always, if you're giving a class and somebody says, well, who said that? And who said that? And who said this? And who said that? Well, sometimes you may need to negate that person because otherwise the rest of the people there may think he has something to say. Mm-hmm. So you may have to use a bit of more power. You're not going to necessarily be kind and warm and fuzzy. Sometimes you have to be a bit tougher to somebody who's a bit tough. And that's the idea of the snake. But it's interesting. And the Rebbe says it's a kind of beautiful idea. He says that when you are using that method, you have to have two preconditions. One is that the stick has to belong. Whose stick is it? Whose stick was it? It wasn't Moshe's stick. That wasn't Moshe's. It was Aaron's stick. Aaron's stick. Who is Aaron? Aaron is, the Pirkei Avos says we should all be like the students of Aaron. Oyev Shalom. We should love peace, want peace, pursue peace, love the people, love the creatures, love everybody. Avos Yisrael. So if you want to give a little bit of what we call in use a bit of musa meaning a bit of negative, a bit of some tough. They call it tough love, right? You have to have the love in you first. You have to be like Aaron. Do you understand? It's the stick of Aaron, because only then will it come across. Teachers. You had the old rebbes. Nowadays we don't do it anymore. But in the old days, rebbes, teachers were allowed. It was quite to sometimes discipline a child who was a bit lazy, was a bit not doing it. You just give them a little bit of a snack or something. But the kids, it didn't hurt the kids in any way. I mean, it may have hurt them physically, but it didn't bother them because they knew that the rebbe, the teacher, was doing it out of love. Nowadays, unfortunately, we don't not a lot of people are in that profession not because of love. Yeah, because they don't actually have the love so much. For whatever reasons. But in the old days, people were teachers. The pay was so bad anyway, right? But they were paid real because they loved the kids. They had a devotion to the children. And so when you have love and care, then a little bit of discipline, right? Parents who discipline their kids, if it's done in a real loving way, so also the kids will accept it. It's only when it's done in a bit of a nasty way, right? That might. So you have to be like Aaron. It has to be Aaron's stick. Yeah. Second thing, the stick swallowed up the other snakes. How come the snake didn't swallow up the snake? The snakes. I mean, in the anybody seen the Prince of Egypt? Seen the cartoon? Prince of Egypt. Famous.
Go home and watch it.
It's famous. It's so famous. So there you see that the snake eats up the other snakes. But you don't actually even see it. You see it's like in the shadows. You only see a shadow. You don't see them actually eating up. But it's quite clever. They made a mistake there because it was the stick that opened. So why should it be a stick that eats the other snakes?
That's impossible.
Well, and one snake against 10 is also pretty impossible, no? Eating up 10 snakes is, yeah, it's more than that. What is that? How would you describe the difference between a snake and a stick? Well, we know a snake. Snake is, it was alive. But what kind of alive is it? Is it a nice, sweet snake? Do you ever hear about a sweetie, cutie snake? No, I never heard of a sweet, cute snake. What are snakes? Usually they've got venom, right? They're always biting. Yeah, it's not like, oh, what a nice, friendly snake. Yes, they're bad. They're out to bite because they're angry. They're out, you know what I'm saying? They've got venom, poison, right? That's a snake. That's what they do. That's what they're paid to do, right? But a stick,
it's calming. It's
a stick has exactly. A stick has nothing. There's no emotions. It's calm. It's cold. So that's it. If you want to give a bit of musa to somebody, the second qualification is you have to do it like a stick. Don't be emotional. Don't get angry yourself. Don't get upset. You've got to be like a stick. You've got to be calm and cool and collected, just like a stick. Isn't that nice? You got to know how. Because sometimes when you're telling somebody off, people get whoa, they get really into it. Oh yeah, a lot of righteous indignation. Everybody loves a bit of old righteous indignation. No. Just be calm. Just explain. Say it. With like a stick. Cool, calm, collected. That's so again. Basically, we have to love and persuade and be positive, etc. Very occasionally, you may need to do the opposite, right? You may need to do another strategy. But even the other strategy, you've got to do it with love, like Aaron, and also you've got to be not too emotional, not too crazy over there. Okay? Right. Now, let us move on. Let us move on to the plagues themselves. So we know the first plague was what? Was blood, of course. Dum, da-dum, 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 dum. And that is basically on page 385, 383, 385. Right? Now, what was this whole point of sabotaging the water supply. Well, one obviously that
Well,
was
they revered it. Like,
they
there was
worshipped,
worship
correct,
of
of
water.
course. They worshipped the water as a god. So the very first thing.
That is a perfect thing to.
Yes, it is interesting, isn't it? That yes, sometimes you attack the thing that other people will worship, and that sends a bit of a shiver
But
because
they were
you're
getting, I think I read that they were getting a source of water from somewhere else in order not to
well,
to
no,
die of thirst.
well,
I mean,
the
I
Midrash
thought
says
everything was
no.
blood in
The Midrash
everything.
says, I mean, again, this is a whole debate and whole discussion. The Midrash says that the Jews, when they were able to dig for water, and when the
the
Egyptians
Jews.
dug, the water
Got blood.
became blood. It didn't help them. They could dig by the river, but it would still
So that
become
was
blood.
exclusive to.
But the Jews, yeah, the Jews were able to dig, and they got the Jews, and they were able to sell that water to the Egyptians.
Oh.
So the Egyptians had to buy the water.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, from the Jews. So only the Jews were able to get the water. Yeah. So yeah, that is what the Midrash says. I mean, the simple shot is that everybody suffered. There's a whole other discussion about the first few plagues. Did the Jews suffer or not? And so the simple set they did. But why blood? Of course, there are many symbolisms. One, of course, was because Pharaoh used to bathe. He had a terrible skin affliction. Okay, and he thought, or his doctors thought, I don't know if it was NHS or private, but one of the doctors told him, they said, well, if you bathe in the blood of Jewish babies, you'll get better. You'll get better. That's what he did. I mean, Pharaoh could do whatever he wants. So God forbid that's what they did for Jewish children. So that was one thing, that the water supply there, God's going to turn to blood, reminding him of what he'd done. Okay? And then there's, of course, another deeper idea. You have the idea that it's a God, it's water supply. So, because that was the whole lifeblood, the lifeline of Egypt. That's why they worship as a God, because they didn't need to worship any God. They didn't need to say, "Oh, Hashem, please send the rains." We don't need no rain. We got the Nile, right? That's why they worshipped it. And it's true. Remember when there was famine, everybody came down to Egypt, right? Why? Because he just got a Nile. You got a Nile, you don't have to worry about the rain. Okay, the Nile goes down. It's lower. There's a bit of a famine, but we still got lots of stuff, and we've got water, still got everything else. So, but there's another deeper idea. What's the difference between water and blood? Apart from Mrs. Huffman. Nobody heard.
Water keeps the blood moving.
Water keeps the blood.
Going
Well,
through the veins.
of course, blood. There is water in the blood. Although, yes, obviously there is a part. Although you don't pour the water in, there is aspects of blood. But but as two different substances, what's it? How would you describe a difference?
Blood has like DNA in it. It has all the
Yes, but I'm not talking about the actual content.
You're talking about.
I'm talking about the
thicker,
Dana.
Thinner.
Yes, you could discuss viscosity.
Yeah. Kettle denies it.
What do you mean the kettle denies it?
Well, you're after warm and cold, aren't you?
I'm actually after some cold water right now.
Blood is
Warm and cold. I said everybody's side, Mrs. Suffering, but all right.
blood
Okay,
is controlled by the heart, so it goes out of the body from the heart, but the water flows by itself.
okay, but you're talking about the function of the blood, the function of the
You're
water.
talking about color.
Here we're talking about the nature of it. The nature of water is to be cold, generally speaking. That's why I'm going to drink some water now.
Blood's supposed to be warm.
Blood is usually associated with warmth, right? Well, if you cool it down, it becomes
That's
cold.
right.
But generally
Lukewarm.
speaking,
It's got
we
to
speak
be
about a person who's warm-blooded, right?
but
Now, we're all warm-blooded. The highest life on the planet is man, and man is warm-blooded. Of course, you have cold-blooded creatures. I'm sorry?
Mammals are warm-blooded, aren't they?
Mammals.
mammals
Yeah, but
are
I'm
warm-blooded.
saying Most mammals are warm-blooded, I think. But I meant man. I mean, we're also mammals. But, oh, no. Oh, no, I didn't mean women. Only men have warm blood, no? So other animals that have cold blood are kind of lower down the, they're sort of, right? So what does this mean, spiritually speaking? Warmth. See, the Egyptians, because they were so into their material god of the water, that was cold. They were cold to spirituality. They were cold to holiness. They were cold to all this sort of thing. So the Torah, one of the plagues, so to speak, they were smitten with this idea of warmth, because Hashem was trying to tell them a lesson. You have to have warmth for spiritual things, not cold. Don't be cold to it. You got the wrong end of the stick. Pardon the pun. Okay, and you so that's why it was smitten with blood. On the other hand, we've got the next plague, which is a plague of frogs. Now, everybody knows frogs are not warm-blooded. They're cold-blooded, right? Because they basically live in the water, right? And here there was the opposite idea, that here Hashem was trying to tell them you have to be cold towards material things, and don't be warm towards them, right? You had these frogs are cold-blooded. So on the one hand is a double message. The first two plagues is a double message. Be cold to, you should be warm to spirituality, and cold to physicality. Not to say, obviously, people need the physicality to live, yes? But some people, their whole existence of life, that's all they want. There's nothing else. It's just, come here, how can I make more money? How can I make more money? How can I eat more? How can I drink more? Yeah. It's all about just more and more physicality. That's not for a Jew, it doesn't work that way. But even for the Egyptians, it was like, hey, chill a bit, chill. Chill, be like a frog. And the frogs, interestingly enough, they had this great self-sacrifice. They threw themselves into the hot places where it was hot. They threw themselves, right, in order to try and cool it down. You know what I'm saying? They literally threw themselves into the ovens. Yeah. There's one interesting Rashi here that says there was one frog, and they kept beating it to try and bash it up. And each time they bashed it up, it became many frogs. Yes, because the one, it uses a word in the singular. It's Sfardeim, Tsefardeia, and then you have, if you look at the word for frogs, yeah, it says on page 384, 385, verse 27, if you refuse to let the people go, then I've got lots of Sfardeim, that's the plural, frogs. Right? And then you look over the page.
What to do?
In verse 2, on page 387, Vayet Aaron es yodo, he put his hand over the water, the frog came up, and then it covered the whole land. So that's why he says very strange. The frog is singular. So that's why Rashi says, why do you call it one frog? So but yes, it's a plague of frogs. So he says that when he hit it, it became many, many frogs. Did you ever see, I always thought did anybody see the film Fantasia? You all saw the film Fantasia. Yes, Walt Disney's Fantasia, the cartoon. Yes? Famous cartoon. There was a section there of music called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Do you remember? Yeah. Do you remember and you remember what happened there? You had Mickey Mouse, was the sorcerer's apprentice, and he was put in charge of basically schlepping the water from here to there, right, from a well. And of course he couldn't be bothered, but because he was an apprentice to the sorcerer, he figured he'll do a trick. So he did a hocus pocus, and he got a broom, and the broom suddenly developed hands and feet, and he was able to carry the water. So he got the broom, so the broom's doing the work for him. Oh, great. So he gets in a chair and he gets a nice start, falls asleep. What happens? He wakes up an hour or so later, and his chair is swimming in water because this stupid broom has just been doing more and more and more water without knowing when to stop. Without knowing to stop. Do you remember this at all?
Yeah.
Is it ringing a bell? Yeah. So what does he do? He gets very desperate. He doesn't know what to do. So because this broom, this dumb broom, he doesn't know how to stop the spell. So he takes an axe. He takes an axe and he smashes the axe. He smashes the broom, and the broom splits into a whole bunch of smaller pieces. And then, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, he's saved. He said, but then all of a sudden, every little bit of broom, right, developed hands and feet and started doing the same thing again. And he kept trying to do it. And I always thought, that's very similar. I thought, if they've been reading Rashi, Walt Disney been reading. Walt Disney was not so true. Not so. It was an anti-Semite. Everybody says. Yeah, I don't think so. But no. Oh, so the end. Oh, with what in the film? Oh, in the film, of course, what happens? It becomes a whole ocean. There's so much water there until the sorcerer returns. The sorcerer returns, and of course, the sorcerer puts everything right. He puts everything right, and he does a little bit of hocus pocus and takes care of it all. Right. So listen, Hashem also took care of these frogs at the end, and they all died. Okay, and they were a stink. There was a real stinking. Can you imagine millions of these frogs dying and rotting? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so that's a couple of the plagues there. I think we've run out of time now. I think we're going to stop over here. I think I'll just finish with finally just about the last plague we read about in this Parsha is about hail. Hail. Now, hail, there was an interesting thing about the hail. It was fire and water. Did you know that?
No.
It was water and fire mixed together. Let's see. You can look it up in the. So it's here. Here, look at verse on page 396, 397, verse 24. The fire, the hail was fire inside the hail. Weird. Wow. So fire and water coming together. Interesting. How is that possible? So, and why did you need that? What's wrong with just hail? There was something unique about the miracle of hail that all the other miracles didn't have. It was the most deadly, in a way, apart from the firstborn. I mean, it killed all the animals. But the funny thing is, Hashem said, it will kill all the animals in the seal. But he warned, he says, if you want, bring all the animals inside, and you bring them inside, they'll be saved. So it's interesting. It was a plague, but you were able to be saved at the same time. So it was like chesed, kindness, of being saved, and din and judgment for those who didn't bring their animals in. So it was a judgment and kindness. And that's the idea of fire and water. Water is chesed, it's kindness. Fire is fire. Fire burns. Fire is destructive. Fire is din. It's gevura. Yes? So here you have fire and water in the same thing, which represented the very miracle itself. That was going to be judgment, going to hurt, going to kill all the animals in the field. Anything's in the field. But if you bring it inside, there's the chesed, there's the kindness. That will save you. So it's an amazing thing there. And sometimes you have opposites that want to come together and make peace. And you can't peace because, you want to serve Hashem, to make shalom. You make shalom between. There were two fighters just recently. There was very famous fighters one of them is called Mike Tyson. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, this Mike Tyson was world champion boxing. And then there's another guy called Jake somebody or other. I can't remember. He's a much younger guy and he's an internet, whatever. And he challenged these guys to a fight. Who's going to win? Even Mike Tyson's 60 years old. And this other guy's much younger. And there was so much anger and fighting and anger and words. And 6 months this went on until the finally fight. In the end, Mr. Tyson lost the fight. But at the inauguration ball, okay, Donald Trump, Tyson was taking this guy, Jake Paul, on. He was giving him on his shoulders. He was carrying on his shoulders. They were both so happy because he won, right? So you got two enemies coming together. Oh, because he's the boss. So in a sense, you got the fire and water, the Havdil, it's a different, right? Coming together to do Hashem's will. That's it. We should all put aside any differences, come together to do Hashem's will. And Bez Hashem, that will help bring Mashiach. As we will see the Exodus in its true fulfillment next week's Parsha.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
What a
And,
beautiful
we'll
ending
see-
of the Shiur. Thank you so much.
Sorry?
What a beautiful way to end the Shiur with those
Oh.
words. Thank you so much.
All the
Amazing.
best.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
pleasure.
Bye.
Helter. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good Shabbos.